So now let's see how we can query our database. So the main command that we use to actually query the database is the select statement. And this is a very powerful statement with lots of variations that we can add on to it, clauses and conditions and all kinds of stuff. So let's focus a little bit on that. So what does select do? Well, the idea is very simple. What select does is, it given a command, what it does is it says give me a set of records from one or more tables. So it could be one table or many tables. So essentially what you're doing is you have a database that contains a lot of information and you want some information out of it. The data is scattered. It's sitting in multiple tables, in student, and enrolls in course, or maybe hundreds of tables. And you want to be able to look across these tables and pull out information, or the information that you need. So it might need to go through multiple tables to actually get the information that you need. And that's the idea here. So when you give a select command, what you're doing is you're saying go to my database and get me the information that I want. And this is to do that, you have to, of course, know the structure of your database, the schema of your database, and you tell it which tables to access and what data to return to you finally. Okay, that's the idea here. And what you're doing is you're actually just describing the results set. The goal is that the server will take care of the processing or the actual procedure. A computer, by definition, is going to go through its process step by step and very micro step by step. But we don't have to tell it how to get the information. We just tell it what we want. We want data that combines information from this table, and that table, and bring it all in. And that's the idea here with this thing. That's what select does. So let's take a look at the select statement. The basic clauses that we have are, the basic structure is, we saw an example earlier, is that you start with the word select. And what you're saying is that this is the selection of information that you want. And you tell it where the data is coming from. So this is pretty much the basic structure. You're always going to have select, and you tell it what you want selected. So the star here is what we want, and the from is from where is it coming. So select is the verb that we are saying to get the data, and from tells the database server which tables to access the data from. You can, the same information will be in multiple tables, so you want to be very clear which tables you want it from. So the simplest statement, of course, is this select star from student, which is going to return all the data, every row in the student. Well, of course, you don't always want everything from a table. You want to choose something about a particular student or some information about that is restricted. So the next thing that we have in our select statement is the clause called where. And what the where clause does is, it's like the if in case of in Python. What the where clause does is it's a condition for the selection. So here in this second query, what we are saying is select star from student where city equals New York. So we are saying get me all information about every student who has a city value, that maybe that's where they live, that's New York, right? And notice that this equals sign over here is the ordinary equals sign. It's not the double equals that we normally see in procedural languages. So this is our description. It's saying, hey database, give me the list of students, all the information about students who live in New York. That's what we are saying. So database figures out how to do it and delivers it for us. We can also choose specific fields. So when we say star, what we're doing is we're saying give me all the information, but we may not want them all. Maybe we want only the first name and last name. So now you can say, hey, the only things I want are F name and L name. So these field names should correspond to the names of the columns in the database, and everything else is pretty much the same. So now what we're getting is the first name and the last name of the student from New York. We can also sort them. So we want to select the social security number from the student table and order them by first name, and we can say ascending. The default is ascending, but so you don't have to say ascending, but you can say order by, and order by is saying now that the data that we get should be ordered by the first name of the student, sorted by the first name of the student. ASC is ascending, and we can also say by descending, and that'll take care of that for us. And finally, we can also say something like select distinct, which says get me the unique cities from the student table if you want to know, for example, which cities our student population comes from. So let's take a look at some of these things here. So let's say we go here, and so I say select star from student and that gives us the entire student table, right? I could say select star from student where city equals New York and run that. Oh, I forgot to put a note that I forgot the double quote, so it gave me an error, and I can run that. And that tells us that the students that we have are from New York are John Childs and Mary Arias. I could say select distinct city from student, and I don't want city equals New York for that. And I run this, and it tells me the distinct cities are New York, Seattle, and San Francisco. And I could actually add, if I wanted to do here, we can see that these are not sorted because Seattle is should come after San Francisco. So I could say order by city and run that, and now they're sorted. I could order by city descending, and we should see them in reverse order, and roughly that's what we get here, right? So so that's the basic structure for this stuff here. Have I got them all? Yeah, I can. Well, yeah. So that's the basics of the select command. The next thing we can do is add some more information to that. So what we're doing is we've chosen in our initial setup, we've chosen to extract actual columns, but we can apply functions to the columns as well. So for example, if I look at the enrolls in table, there's a grade column or a score column in that table, and I can find the average. So average obviously you can only find for numerical columns, like integers or floats or whatever, and so I can find an average for the score from that thing here. So what this says here is that you want to select the average score from enrolls in. So it's going to find the average from that table there. We can do that selectively. We can say only for the class C1. So that would find it only for class C1. And we can also group by. We can, for example, let's take a look at this actually. And so I could say select. So let's take a look at our table here. Select star from So if you look at the enrolls in table, it has 3 columns, social security number, class, and score. And I want to find is the average. So I replace the star by the average of the score. And that tells me the average is 71. Okay. Then I can selectively do this. I could say where class equals C1. So what that is doing is it's telling us that we want to choose only for where the class is C1, and I click on this and it tells me that for C1 it's 72 is the average. Okay, and then I can replace the where clause by, what I want to do is I want to say here, if I do select star from enrolls in, I have 3 different classes, C1, C2, and C3, right? So what I want to do is I want to find the average by the class. So rather than having to do where class equals C1, class equals C2, class equals C3, I can say do this for the entire setup by using a group by clause, and say group by class and give me the average score. So what this is going to do now is it's going to take each class and group them together. So in a sense, what's happening is that we get these records here, C1, C1, and C1 group together, and we find an average for this group, and then C2, which is only 1, we find an average for that group, and C3, which is only 1, we find the average for that group, and we run this, and we get the average scores C2 95, C1 72, C2 95, C3 44. We can see that. We can also add over here the class, the thing we're grouping by, and we get the information that's organized like that. So it's a very handy way of getting information of groups of data that we from our database itself.